Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Abigail, the ultimate guru, and with me is my temporary for the day co host, Tappy. Yay,
Oh,
Tappy.
this is effectively like an episode of Bar Rescue, where I heard that Here to Help is failing. So I'm here to address the situation, see if Abby might be causing those issues in any way, and just take inventory of the situation. It's probably not salvageable, but we'll give it the old college try. So I'm here.
Why would you assume it's me and not the guy who couldn't even show up today? Incredible. Lazy.
That's a good point. But if it's both of you, I don't know like how we're gonna turn this ship around because podcasts are very personality driven. So we can't get rid of both of. We kind of got to work with what we're given here, right?
Yeah, I guess you're right. We can work with it. Although I don't know how you're gonna shut us down because I can't stop, won't stop. If you think you can make me stop talking, I just talk. I just keep talking. I never
But
shut
you're in
up.
the process of shutting yourself down. I'm here to try to turn it around.
That's true. Okay, that's fair. Our numbers are fine. I mean, I would say. Anyway, so we got some questions, but they're not Dear Abbies. They're Dear Tappies. So we're going to start off with our Dear Tappy segment. Do. Here we go. Let's see. This is from Bunny. Discuss how almost 20 years ago, most women and men who were below upper class had no idea what a Rolex was. No middle and even lower middle class men know what they are and save up for one. And every woman
Yeah,
knows what it is now, and you must own one as a bare minimum. Is that true, Taffy, that you must own one as a bare minimum?
yeah. So 20 years ago, you could have a Timex with Indiglo and a Mickey Mouse character on it. You could have, I don't know, a
A Mickey
Seiko, not even a
Mouse?
Grand Seiko. You could just have a Seiko and you'd be doing okay. Yeah, like the Mickey Mouse ones where the seconds and hours hands are like Mickey's arms. You could have one of
Like
those.
for children?
No, no. Well, that's a bit presumptive, but sure. But you could anyway. I'm telling the story,
I'm
right?
sorry. Keep
20,
going.
20 years ago, you could have a Mickey Mouse Timex and walk around in broad daylight. But I know why you choose to have your little pickup artist conventions in dark basements now, and it's because you're afraid of the 23-year-old finance bro wearing the Rolex Wimbledon. He runs these streets now. So basically, it's just another product of the mass exposure of social media where you are only ever seeing the lifestyles of people with effectively fantasy lives that own like 10 different Rolexes. But if that's all you see in your Instagram feed, you become accustomed to it and start to perceive it as normal. So, yeah, it's a very unfortunate thing that's happened where it used to be that you could spend all these money on Rolexes and have an advantage. But now, it's just, you're basically just treading water. You're doing everything you can to keep your head above water, just buying $20,000 iced out Rolex Datejust just so that the dental hygienist will even look at you with anything other than contempt or disgust. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Very unfortunate situation.
Do you have any evidence to support this idea that you have to have a Rolex? Because
Well, I mean,
I've never
I
heard
don't.
anyone talk about this except for you.
Well, I mean, clearly money agrees, but it's not necessary. I guess maybe that was a bit overstated. You don't necessarily have to have a Rolex, but you need like at the very, very least like an Omega Speedmaster. Maybe like some women that are gonna give you more of a chance would be okay with you having a tutor. Some of the more kind of demanding cardio bunnies are probably going to want to see a AP Royal Oak on the wrist. It all sorts of depends, but you need something with like some prestige, some heritage. You need like at least a Rolex Explorer, the first watch to go on top of Mount Everest, the Speedmaster,
Yeah.
the first watch to be on the moon. Like something if it doesn't have the history, you're going to need some diamonds to account for that. Just like something
Tappy.
so they won't just like walk over you while you're dying on the sidewalk. Yeah.
I think you're really overestimating women here. And usually I take the other side of this sort of question. Okay. But no woman knows about the history of the Time Master or the Rolex or whatever. No woman can tell the watches apart. Does it look nice?
No, I made this point on my account the other day where I was saying that I agree that women can't overtly like see like I use the example of a Breitling Navitimer. They can't look at a Breitling Navitimer and be like, "Oh, that's the 2022 model. I know because it has the new colorway and it's got like all this history in aviation and it was like worn by famous people like Miles Davis and like so forth." Right? I don't think they can like overtly lay that out, but there is like something to be said for the idea of like a woman's intuition, right? Where even if your Navitimer isn't out, because some watches look expensive, but even if your Navitimer is like underneath like the sleeve of your long sleeve shirt, like your long sleeve Henley, she can still like tell. There's some sort of like mysticism that women are more able to tap into than men that kind of gives them premonitions about these sorts of things. So I do think that
That's a
like
good point.
if you own I mean honestly, I don't know how far this effect goes. I think if you own an Navitimer, even if it's like at your apartment at home, there might be some sort of like residual like
Yeah.
aura about you. You just kind of glow differently. But anyway,
Okay.
that's all that yeah.
The thing is, okay, that we can do with this show, okay, this episode, it's very special, Tappy. Very special. I have begged Bryden to let me edit the freaking show, but he won't let me. He will not give me that ability. He doesn't want me to fix our embarrassments ever.
Oh,
But
for the
I
record, that
have the
wasn't like a
power
bit.
now.
Yeah, that wasn't a bit. Those are my honest thoughts. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. But
I
anyway.
can tell. You have a lot of very deep thoughts and you're very autistic. I can tell.
Well, thank you.
But no, I think you're right about the last bit. Your response to me made a lot of sense. Women just know things. But I
Yeah.
think that it isn't really the watches that are the problem there. I mean, wouldn't you say that maybe the same effect on your aura could come from some other thing that gives you confidence, or even like an inner
Oh,
confidence?
yeah, so not like I'm glad you asked. Another thing I've been kind of thinking about lately is that there's so many like disqualifiers that basically prevent you from being like a human being at all, and you've got to get so lucky to like hit all the right attributes. Like if you've got like a negative cancel till you can never have a girlfriend and your life is over and you've just got like 80 years of like kind of meaningless suffering until you die, right? And then if
Is
you're under 6 foot, you could say the same. If you're a mesomorph and you don't have a propensity to hold on to muscle mass easily, your life is over. If you're I don't know, like your parents kind of instill you with some sort of like bad mindset or toxic attitude, then you won't be properly socialized. Your life is over. Like if
right.
you like, there's so many like things that can just like immediately disqualify you from just like having some semblance of like the human experience that it's almost infinite. It's kind of amazing that there's like any kids being born at all if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it
But
sounds to me like by these qualifications, you're got to be in like the top, what, 95th percentile of men
yeah.
to
I mean, yeah,
ever
you look at these like
reproduce.
dental hygienists that, and they're like, oh, well, like my potential boyfriend would need to be like over 6'3" and like make over $100,000 a year by like and be like 23. And then you like go to those websites where it calculates like how many 6'5" 23 year
Yeah,
olds that are making 200,000, and there's like it's like eight
there's
people in the
eight
continental
people.
United States, right?
I
Like and
really hope she finds them. I hate to get
yeah,
all gay about this, but I tend to do that sometimes. But honestly, nobody
you tend to
ever
do what?
brings up love anymore.
That's cringe. Human relationships are transactional. Love exists for women and children.
Okay,
That-
but the man with the negative canthal tilt can profit off of the fact that women do want love, right?
No, no, they want to be loved. They don't want to love. It's very different. They want to be loved by like essentially like Ryan Gosling or an equivalent.
No one wants to be loved by Ryan Gosling. He gives
Uh,
off very weird vibes, very gay vibes. That's why men love him
you
so
understand
much.
they cast him for the Barbie movie. You're aware of this,
I
right?
did, yes.
Or they want to be okay. Like this is the problem with people like you, right? Like you
With
say in something
people
that's
like
very
me.
no, you say it and it's very clearly like an example. It's like, oh, somebody like this. And the idea I'm trying to get across, okay, like pick whoever you want, like Sylvester Stallone or like freaking just like
No, wait,
any number
wait.
of people. Brad Pitt from
No, I
Fight
need
Club,
to go
any
back to
number of
this.
people.
You
No, but
think
like
that they are
and you like
casting
hyper
a
fixate.
straight, hyper masculine man as Ken? Is that what you think?
Yeah, I mean,
as
like, I guess
Ken,
I'm not like a
the
big Barbie
doll.
guy. I don't know all the lore,
He wears
but my
pink and he's a little like he's a little fruity and he's like I mean he basically acts like her gay best
Evie, you're
friend.
proving my point again here. What I'm trying to say is that it was just a throwaway example to illustrate a larger point. But people like you, they hyper fixate on like, well, let me pick apart your like specific example. It's like that's so not the
It's a
point. Okay,
tactic.
if you don't like Ryan Gosling, pick like pick Brad Pitt from Fight Club. Like that's not what we're talking about right now. Can you try to like just go with the flow of the conversation, please?
Well, Brad Pitt from Fight Club is peak man.
No, he's literally like a lanklet. Like look at like how like buff Christian Bale got for Batman, or like
Girls
even
don't
American
want
Psycho.
super buff guys. They just want to be carried. Like if you can lift us, that's fine.
Yes.
I'm telling you, look, you're so fixated on these things that only men care about. Okay, it's a little suspicious.
No, but like
Okay,
don't like. Can you just acknowledge? And you're not going to acknowledge this, and you're going to say it's because you're being honest and you actually don't see the world like this. But I know why you're not going to acknowledge it because you don't want to like let the cat out of the bag. But let's say you're like walking around like Target, right?
okay,
And you see this random guy that's just shopping by himself and otherwise presentable enough guy, but he like reaches for his like oranges or whatever, and you see that he has like a $40 like Timex on his wrist, right? You're not
okay.
gonna like regard him with like some sort of like visceral like disgust, just like contempt for his existence that he would like take up space in the same room as you.
Okay. No, I
You,
wouldn't.
you no, well, you're okay.
I don't
Well,
know anything about watches, Taffy. Women don't know
no, but I'm
anything
saying
about watches, Taffy.
let's
There's
say you
no
see
way
that it's
I
a
would
time.
notice that he's even wearing a watch, especially if he's handsome.
Okay, would you notice if it was like one of those rainbow golden Rolex Daytonas that sell for like $300,000?
Are they
You would
super
notice, right? And
bright?
then you would be like, wow, that is a cool guy, wouldn't you?
It's rainbow, you said? Is it very
It's like so
bright
they've got
and
20 no,
attention
it's like
grabbing?
golden, but it's around the outer bezel. They've got I believe it's 24 like color matched sapphires to form like a perfect gradient, which is insanely hard to do because they all have to like
Yeah.
color match perfectly along the line in order to like
Okay.
match up, right?
But I would notice that because it sounds very cool.
Yeah.
But
And
I
then wouldn't you
wouldn't
be like,
just
oh wow, that's
notice.
a cool guy? You would be like, that's a cool guy,
Well,
right?
yeah,
And if
but
you were a dental hygienist, you would be, and you weren't married, you would be like, wow, I need to like talk to that guy, right? Like,
okay, yeah. No, I could see that, but it's not really that it's a watch.
what is it then?
Okay, that does look really cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's very pretty.
Like this is like literally the minimum you
But it's
need to like
distinctive. It catches the eye.
if you want to take a girl to like Chipotle, you better have one of those. Like,
If you
cause she's, you know what's gonna happen? You know what's gonna happen? Let's say even a normal Rolex, we're getting to the point with the way inflation works. Like, I mean, because Joe Biden's presidency, if you go to like Chipotle and you're wearing like a Rolex Explorer from like 2006, that's just like black and white, black dial, like white accents, somebody is gonna walk up to you and they're gonna be like, "Yo, bro, like your rolly's thawed. Thawed is in like not iced out, like no diamonds, no ice." He's gonna be like, "Why do you have a thawed rolly?" And you know what's gonna happen? Your
what?
date is gonna be like, she's gonna be like, "Wow, I hadn't thought about that. I was so like enamored that it was a Rolex that I hadn't. You know what? You are right. It is thawed." And they're both gonna stand there in this Chipotle and they're gonna laugh at you and you're gonna be crying in Chipotle. It's like that's what's gonna happen to you, right?
I think okay, so Tappy's here to help everyone know what watch to buy. What is the optimal watch to buy on a budget that
What's
will
the budget?
save these people? So say 1500.
$1,500? I don't like honestly put your go to the casino and put your 1,500 on black and like I mean if you
Oh
lose go
wow.
like be a lumberjack in the Canadian wilderness like Dexter, and if you win then like but you can't have that sort of attitude if you're going to if you want to be successful in today's climate. I mean, I guess
Okay.
the best you could do is just buy like $100 like fake Daytona and like hope that nobody calls you on it and just live in like perpetual fear for the next 10 years while you save up money for a real one. But
I'm
I guess that would be my recommendation.
I'm going to push back one more time before we move on. But Taffy, I know a lot of married men, including some that were married in the past few years, And I don't know anyone that owns a Rolex at all. Even the rich people I know don't
What are they?
wear
Well, I mean, like we.
Rolexes.
Oh my god, we already talked. This is the same thing you did with the Ryan Gosling thing, where it's like, okay, take
I'm just saying
substitute
that I'm not
substitute
sure where
Rolex
you're
with
getting
like
it from.
substitute Rolex with like Louis Patek or AP or like I guess to a certain extent Omega. Like,
Are
can you
these all
just kind of like
watches?
go with the point of what's happening here, right? You're gonna like it doesn't necessarily have to be Rolex. It could be like a Royal Oak. It could be
Okay, no, but that's
something.
okay. Okay, everyone, buy a $5,000 watch, and you will no longer be an incel. You will be
No, I didn't say
cured.
no.
Happy,
Stop. I do
Happy
not.
is
No, I don't want to
promising
mislead your
this.
audience.
He's
No, I don't want. I
promising
no.
this money
No,
back guarantee.
$5,000 is basically the cost of admission. It's not saying you won't be an incel. It's just
Oh,
saying
it's not
you
enough.
will have that's your starting point. That's like you have a chance now. It's like paying the
Okay.
cover fee to get into the bar. That doesn't mean that you're gonna like find the love of your life. That's just the cost of admission. From there, like this is your chance to have a shot. This is like
Okay.
your
Okay.
buy-in at a poker tournament, right? Like
So they need the $5,000 Rolex, but then they
where
also
are you buying Rolexes for $5,000,
I
Abby?
d-
What world do
are
you
they
live in?
more than that? Is this the wrong price?
Yeah, no, like this is
What?
like
Give me the number. Give me the number.
well, it
What
depends on
do
what
they
you
have
want.
to
Like,
spend to get a woman? Tell them they're
if you want
desperate.
if you want a used date just, it's gonna be like $9,000 or $10,000.
Okay. Okay. So what about a new one? Is that like 20K?
I don't even know because you're not buying a new one. You're getting waitlisted. Like I saw this guy trying to
Oh my
flex to his.
gosh.
I saw this guy trying to flex to his girl the other day, and he was like, "I had the money for a brand new Rolex Wimbledon or whatever he was trying to buy," and he was like, "And I walked in, and they didn't even have one. I was trying to be a big baller. I was trying to stunt. I was trying to get this new Rolex, and they didn't even have one to sell me." It's like that just goes to show. I bet that when he said that to that woman, she like at least thought about leaving him or left him shortly after because that shows he's trying to like signal to be like, look how high status I am. I have the money to throw around for Rolex, but they don't even have one for me. They're like that's bullshit. But like the problem with that is that if
That he
she
doesn't
has
have the
any amount of
Rolex.
class, he doesn't like no, he doesn't know how the game works. Like you
Okay.
have to grease their hands to get moved up the buy list, or you have to buy it new from like somebody else that bought it when they moved up the buy list. Like you're not going into a authorized dealer and just buying a Rolex
Okay.
for retail. This is not like
So
2010. Can we get real, please?
is there like a dude on the street with like a trench coat with them in the trench coat?
No, you basically just have to go to a jewelry store that has sourced it from somebody else. Like I don't need to get into how like buying new Rolexes in 2023 works, but you can't walk in anywhere and
Wow.
get whatever Rolex you want. It doesn't work like that.
So okay, so there's an esoteric cure for inceldom, but it's just too hard. Okay. I got
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
I'm
What's the
sorry,
next
everybody.
question?
It's been more than 2 years since American Lad said he was going to get on TRT. He is no closer than when he started. That's not.
Yeah.
Is that a? That's not even a question.
No, it's like I guess
That's not
just
a question, buddy.
I know what he's getting at here. The question is like, what's the holdup, right? And
What is
there's a
TRT?
Drake lyric. TRT is effectively like testosterone replacement. It's like a
Okay.
form. When most people say steroids, they don't actually mean like steroids because that's like a very specific sort of thing. They just mean any number of different like performance enhancing things. So that could be trend, that could be steroids, it could be SARMs, it could be like hormone replacement stuff, like injecting testosterone. These like
Right.
any number of things to like increase your like propensity to put on muscle mass, decrease recovery times, like those sorts of things,
Okay.
right?
But American Lad has low testosterone then, if he's doing this specifically.
Well, not everybody that is on TRT necessarily has low testosterone levels to begin with. It could just be that you want like super physiological amounts of testosterone to like expedite the
Okay.
muscle like growing process, right? So, but I mean that all that being said, I mean I'm not a physician, but if I had to guess, I would imagine that like American Lad is starting at like lower testosterone levels, right? But in terms of like
I
what
mean,
is
it
the
seems
holdup?
like it. He acts like it.
Yeah, no, in terms of like what's the holdup, I would say that there's Drake line where he says like lifters is full of excuses, but they act like they're taking their time, and that's kind of American Lad to me. It's like he talks about like, oh, slow, steady, incremental progress, because like I want it to make like a permanent lifestyle change, and I get when people you can't like be like, oh, I'm gonna eat Oreos tonight, but then tomorrow, starting tomorrow, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna run 10 miles, right, and like do all like that's not how it works. But like I think the incremental progress is so slow that I don't know. I don't think we're gonna get there.
Right.
We're running out of time. We're running out of time. It's very
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Speaking of incremental progress and running out of time and things taking too long, I thought you guys were gonna have a podcast.
Yeah. Again, it's just like he needs to get his sleep schedule figured out. He needs to pass trigonometry. I mean, there's a lot of constraints on American Lab's time because when you wake up at like 2 p.m. and you got like eight
Right.
trigonometry questions for homework, like that most of your day is gone right there, right? So he's figuring it out. He'll get there. He's There's a lot going on. So
Well, I'm shocked he can even do trigonometry.
yeah.
Uh, Tappy's take on Adderall usage and how it ruined American Lad's life. Is that why his sleep schedule's so messed up? Why are we doing gossip on this show? I don't know, but I'm fine with
So I guess I already talked about American Lad enough, but everything I said already pretty much applies. But
Poor guy.
the issue with Adderall is it's kind of like it kind of almost goes back to the watch thing,
Yeah.
where like as people are constantly exposed to the top 1% via Instagram and YouTube, and they start to like normalize that and think that's what like is the average person is like.
Well, they're all on
The issue
coke
with
or Adderall, yeah.
yeah, the no, the issue, well, not necessarily coke, but the issue with Adderall specifically is that it is effectively a performance enhancing drug for like life instead of like sports, right? Like maybe you can inject yourself with something and then you'll like be stronger so you can like ice skate better, like that Russian girl, right? That like cheated. But Adderall is basically cheating at life because you look at like Magic the Gathering and like Counter-Strike and chess, and a lot of those people in the pro scenes for those sorts of things, like intellectual pursuits, they're all like admit to abusing Adderall because it helps you like focus better, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, you listened there was a big controversy where after he left Cloud9, Semphis, the professional Counter-Strike player, was like, "Oh, if you go back and like listen to our comms during tournaments, we were all like hyped up on Adderall. We were talking like a mile a minute, and it just makes you better at the game." And like you go back and listen, and sure enough, they're like, "Oh my God, 1C, 1A, but like throw smoke a little bit." Like they're all going a mile a minute, like bouncing off the walls. So the issue is that like if you're not abusing Adderall, you almost in a way are like doing yourself like a disservice because all the people around you are, especially if you're in college, like people are going to be doing it to like stay up all night to grind papers and also like have some semblance of a social life. So
Yeah.
it kind of goes to show the issues with progress in general where it's like, oh, we've progressed, we discovered this medicine, but then if everybody's using it just to get back to level with each other, then you haven't really progressed at all, right? I mean, in a way you could almost argue that it's worse because now in order to keep up you've got to like damage your body with the side effects of what Adderall does to you. So
Well, I
that's
mean,
kind of, yeah.
it's like that with a lot of things right now. Almost everybody is on something, antidepressant, anti-anxiety,
Yeah,
Adderall for
like all the Twitter
ADHD.
trad moms, they all take Valium so that they can like get through their
Well,
everyday
they don't.
struggle of like putting DVDs and DVD players. Yeah, it's tough out
No,
there.
no, no.
I understand.
They do not actually, because they're constantly complaining, including me, about how we have not been given any drugs, and that we should be given drugs as a default to get through the job that we have to do. So maybe not, but no, all this you see all over Twitter. Well, there's the Adderall shortage right now, and I saw people talking about how like lawyers and stuff are starting to just do a bunch of Adderall instead of Coke because of like fentanyl in the Coke now, and that maybe that's part of the Adderall shortage is like people are scared of cocaine now.
Yeah, and I
And
mean
so
you
the
look at
rich
like a
people
lot
are
of
just
the
buying Adderall instead. Oh, but then also like there's this massive, massive uptake. It seems like, at least anecdotally, I haven't looked up like stats on this or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if they correlate. But of adult onset ADHD or like adult diagnosis ADHD, and you see on Twitter constantly people talking about how they were just diagnosed with ADHD and that's why they've never been able to accomplish anything in their lives. And I think it's just it's a crutch, like you are a failure because you're not on drugs, and that is the default mindset of our society right now when it comes
I'm
to
so
like
glad you
being
mentioned
capable.
that because like I think that specifically, obviously, like Adderall is the most overprescribed medication in history, and I think a lot of that is like the very basic sort of normie critique is that I mean, there's incentive structures in place because of the way pharmaceuticals are distributed, where like it's profitable and all that, and I understand that. But also, it's kind of a result of like matriarchy because like if you look at the no, but it because if you actually though, if you look at the way that American public school, or I guess kind of like American and European public school for that matter, are structured, it's like not conducive to educating, especially I think frankly anyone, but especially young boys, right? Because girls mature faster than boys. So I'm not necessarily saying that they ought to be sitting in a desk for 8 hours effectively stationary. I think that's like absurd. But if you've got like a 7-year-old boy and you're like, oh, you have to sit at this desk for 8 hours, and if you fidget too much, there's something wrong with you. I think that's ridiculous. But
No, I get that. And I agree. I think that there is a problem fundamentally with the structure of a government run public school system. Like just what it is to have every kid in the country by default going to, and not just the elites or anything like that, like it was historically, okay? Everyone goes, okay? And you've got 35 kids per class. They can't do such long they get like 30 minutes of recess or whatever because they just cannot, other than PE class, which is I guess extra on top of that physical activity. They just you can't have one teacher per 35 kids and keep an eye on them on the playground. Like they're constantly fighting and getting hurt and they're being rough. And so I think you have to have the school day, like the core subjects, even in a public school setting with one teacher for 30 kids. Okay, you could be done with the core subjects in 3 or 4 hours. Okay, with homeschooling maybe it would take 2. Okay, and even I've got 3 different kids, 3 different levels of teaching, it still only takes 2 hours, right? In a public school setting it would still only take like 4 hours. But
I mean, we'll see how we'll compare in 15 years and see how that ended up.
Yeah, well, but it's daycare, so they have to do all this extra stuff and have all this extra time set up. The school system, okay, so, but it's also daycare, right? With women in the workplace,
for sure.
also, you have to have the kids somewhere. Like you're not going to pay for daycare and then educate your kids afterwards after you're done with work. Like for 8 hours a day. Now, it has to be long enough for the parents to get their work done and to not have to pay for daycare or anything like that. Like maybe an after school program, but it's cheaper because it's just an hour or 2, or maybe they just, they're home alone for an hour before parents get home. It's not a big deal because it's not all day. Like I remember when I was a kid, they would me and my cousins just got stuck in one house, and because I was the oldest, is like 9 or 10 years old, I was in charge, and that's what summers and weekends were like for years. But it just freaking Lord of the Flies, because you need the child care. What was I getting at? Oh yeah. So if you have not enough teachers to allow for them to run around and play, like I don't think it's a matriarchy problem. It's this is what it is. This is how it functions. The boys cannot act out because it does not work with the system we have created for society that we're all basically stuck in now.
It's a ridiculous system, like entirely, but I'm saying it disproportionately negatively affects young boys.
That's true.
I think the reason that you think that is that you're experiencing it from the demand side of things, where like you are like just kind of like a middle class parent with all these logistical concerns about like time and resources. But I think that you underestimate how intentional it was from the supply side, right? I don't think that, because like it may look like there's a bunch of like kind of like happenstance situations that have arisen to like end up where we're at today, but I think a lot of that was very intentional. Oh, okay. You don't?
No. I don't think it's coincidental at all. No. Mm-hmm. I think they want to break all of us.
Yeah.
I think that the way that it's set up breaks our souls. Like I've talked about this with just the difference in behavior. My kids act out a lot, and every time I get like in my head and just frustrated with it and thinking that I'm a bad parent, I try to remind myself of the reasons I did not behave like that when I was a kid. And it was really because I was terrified, because these authority figures that I only know for a year at a time, other than like principals and stuff, but you never see the principal unless you're in huge trouble, but they're scary. They're intimidating. I don't want to get on their bad side. I barely ever see my parents. I'm scared they're not going to love me if I misbehave. I was just broken down. My soul was completely crushed by just the day-to-day life of the situation that I'm in. And I think that government schools are there to crush the souls of all the children.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that you need to escape the matrix. You need to start drop shipping. Build your own financial freedom. Buy my course, link in the description. So on and so forth, right?
Exactly. And we are back. Tappy, I'm going to ask you the next question. This is the Tappy
Okay.
show today, apparently. Do you want to get into some Reddit stuff instead? Because this is taking a long time.
No, I mean we can blitz through some questions, just lightning round, go fast.
Okay, discuss how airline travel has caused even more headaches, as if you ever want a shot at procreating, you must fly business class no matter what.
I think the more problematic version of that is, just to answer really quickly, is that you used to see where like the most attractive woman in a village had like basically there would be like 200 people living in a village and like half of them would be men and like half of them would be like dating age men, so you had a competition of like 50 other people. But the issue is now that like Drake could like DM your girl on Instagram and like he has the resources to fly her out no matter where she is, so that's kind of the issue there. And yeah, also if you fly economy, like women won't even look at you, and you've got the same problem as the Rolex problem. Anyway, continue. That's my take on that.
Right. So everyone is going to be an incel forever because nobody can afford to buy $20,000 Rolexes and fly business
No,
class every time.
no, you're mischaracterizing me. Basically, what I'm saying is that you need to keep up with Drake in order to compete. It used to be that you had to like out compete.
Why? Why would you need to keep up with Drake? Drake is not DMing your girl, Tappy.
But I'm saying he could be.
He's not. It's
There,
very
but
unlikely. It's extremely
you understand that
unlikely.
used to be.
And plus, it's Drake.
I don't know. Whatever. We don't. It's we just are. We're not going to agree with this on with each other on this. So let's just
No,
move
we're
on.
not, because you're just
Okay.
paranoid. You're like extremely paranoid. Drake is
No,
not DMing your girlfriend.
Okay. Okay. Well, whatever. Vanish mode exists, so I don't know.
All right, here we go. Our
No,
friend.
what's the T Grizzly line? He says, "I'd up that chop on my brother. I don't trust nothing." That's kind of where I'm at. But anyway, continue.
That's where you're at. He doesn't trust nothing. Okay, from our friend Charles. We love Charles.
We do love Charles.
Our Mexican friend. Dear Abby, should I use gloves when I beat my girlfriend? And if so, what kind of gloves? That one is easy. It would be boxing gloves.
Yeah. In Minecraft, I would. Yeah, there's probably some cool mods you could get, but yeah, I don't really have any further comment on that.
Dear Abby, what's the best way to learn cooking to flex on my girlfriend, to gaslight her and make her feel bad about being bad at the things she's supposed to do?
Okay, so find a restaurant where the food would not be identifiable to your girlfriend, but it would be high quality. Order that restaurant, tell her you made it, and then
Just put it on a
just
plate?
basically browbeat her over like how much better of a cook you are, and gaslight her. There you go. Next question.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, actually, because it's just sweeter and better if you're doing it in person. Like if you invite her over for dinner and you're gonna cook it and you cook it in front of her, right?
Well,
And then, like,
my
she can be
girlfriend
like-
does not look thrilled right now.
She does. I bet you pulled it on her. But no. So okay, you can find some. You know what? I can give you some recipes, Charles. Don't worry. I'll send you some recipes, and I'll give you really complicated ones. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna just look very confident. And when you chop the vegetables, chop them really fast, but try not to cut your finger off while you're doing it. And then have her try to help cut an onion or something, but then correct her on her form as if you know what the right form is. It doesn't matter if you're right or not. Just show her how to do it a different way. Okay? And then doesn't matter how the onions were chopped ultimately. What matters is that it'll taste good because it's one of my recipes.
Oh.
You've got to do a whole production. A whole production. And then John wants to know, what dishes or recipes do you think everyone should be able to cook? and that would
Okay, so
be
this is I'm glad you asked because I've got something called the Tappy Special,
what
which
is it?
got me through college. Basically, well, up until I met my girlfriend, I should say, where basically we were trying to make the smooth like mom to girlfriend transition, but then there was a little bit of an intermediate period where I needed to like not starve to death. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna buy a pack of ramen noodles and you're gonna throw away the like the shrimp or like beef or chicken like gross flavoring packet. You're just gonna use the noodles, right? And you're gonna put it in a bowl in like a pan of or not pan, what are they called? A pot of boiling water, right? And then you're going to put like 4 or 5 eggs in there. I don't know like how tall you are. You're probably not 6'6", but like for me it was like 5 eggs in this like
I'm
pot of boiling water
7'6".
with the ramen. And then so you're basically poaching the eggs and cooking the ramen at the same time. And then you just take it out and you just put it through a strainer and just like dump a bunch of sriracha on top. And then there you go. Doesn't get much more efficient than that.
That sounds very protein packed with all of the eggs. That sounds delicious, Tappy.
Thank
Uh,
you.
but we're gonna move on to our Reddit advice segment. Everybody, are you excited? Are you super duper excited? I think everyone is. All of my screenshots are messed up. Sorry. We're gonna go to Am I the Asshole from JGay93. I wonder if he's gay.
I mean, he's a redditor, so it's a very real possibility.
I love to cook, and even more so when I'm cooking for other people. I'm also the kind of person who likes to be good at everything I do, so I put in a lot of effort into cooking and also always ask for feedback so I can make it better next time. The one thing I ask for is that whoever I'm cooking for takes one bite before adding anything to it for 2 reasons. One, I want to know how my cooking turned out. Two, it's kind of rude to assume someone's cooking is lacking before you even try it. I understand that people have different tastes and palates, and I wouldn't ask them not to put any more salt, pepper, or other seasonings after they try it. I just ask for one bite so I can get actual feedback. My brother-in-law doesn't agree with me on this, and when I've asked him to just try it before adding salt, he gets heated and says that he knows what he likes and he should be able to do what he wants with his own food. I fully understand and support him eating his food the way he likes, truly. But at the end of the day, how does he know whether or not I've salted my food enough if he doesn't take a bite first? Like I said, I'm always trying to improve, so I make changes depending on people's. Oh my goodness gracious, long winded much.
Okay, can I just answer the question, please?
Yes.
Okay, so first off, I'm like very disappointed because I thought you would have picked something like I browbeat my girlfriend into developing bulimia because I thought she needed to lose weight, and now her therapist told me I'm toxic and she's trying to break up with me or something cool like that, right? But
I'm
like
sorry that I've
this is
disappointed
ridiculous.
you.
But like I guess my actual answer is like, do you think that any like great men in history that like accomplished anything put like this level of like mental thought and like energy into like something so trivial? Like, do you think that I don't know before he like crossed the Rubicon? Do you think that like that's what they were thinking about, or do you think that like before George Washington like took the boat down the freezing river, he was like, oh, I wonder if like that
These are
person I sent a letter to 3 weeks ago like thought my tone if my tone came across as accusatory. Like, I mean, can we like can we get real? This is absurd. Like,
maybe
I
not
don't know.
George Washington, but not everyone's George Washington. I don't know, but the thing about this story is I'm only halfway through it, but the point usually is that it's not that they're upset that someone didn't like their food, it's that everyone is freaking out at them for something. That's usually what it ends up as. Like everyone around them is actually freaking out.
Yeah, but like I mean, who cares? Because from the perspective of the person that's adding things to the food, maybe for the last 20 years, 90% of what they've eaten, they've been like, oh, this needs more salt. So, like, I don't think it's like
Yeah.
an assault on your personhood
Well,
for
no,
this
no, no.
person to
Well,
just.
let me finish the problem.
Okay.
The last time I cooked for the family, I made sure to put extra salt because that was the feedback I got last time I made that specific dish. Another thing to note is that brother-in-law adds salt to all of his food, and it's always a lot of salt. When I served brother-in-law his plate, so basically these people keep telling them, everyone told him he needs to put more salt in it the last time. Brother-in-law always says to put more salt in it, so they did add the more salt. When I served brother-in-law his plate, yes, he can serve himself. I just like to put effort into the presentation. I told him that I added more salt than usual, so he should try it before he adds salt. He said, I'll do whatever I want with my food, thanks, and just brushed me off. We sit down to eat, and he immediately starts salting his food like usual. Everyone else is trying it and saying it's really good, and they give me a solid 8 out of 10. Brother-in-law takes a bite and makes a face. He's very fair, so it really shows when he's irritated because he gets really red. And he was red as a brick. I asked him what was wrong with it, and he accused me of oversalting his food on purpose so that he'd ruin his food when he added more salt. Here's where I may be the asshole. I responded by saying that maybe if he tried the food first, then he wouldn't have oversalted it himself by adding more salt. He got pretty salty, pun intended, over what I said, and my sister called me petty for messing with someone's food, and now he's refusing to eat what I cook. My mom is telling me to apologize, and my dad doesn't think I did anything wrong. So the problem here is more that everybody's mad at him for it. For adding more salt. That's really it.
I don't care.
I know.
It's like,
sorry.
Are these like the trials and tribulations of like suburban living? Like,
No, I think it's interesting.
I don't care. I just don't care. Like,
know
is this
you
how
don't
people?
care.
Is this how the other half like lives? I don't care. Like,
You don't
please.
understand the format of the show. You're supposed to get angry about one side
No,
or
I'm
the
angry.
other.
I am angry. I'm angry at like how like fucking stupid this is. Like, who cares? Like, please get a real problem. Like, it just doesn't matter. It's so inconsequential. Like, oh, my brother-in-law didn't like my lasagna. The sun will rise in the east tomorrow, dude. Like, who fucking cares? Please. Just don't care.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right.
Like, what do you want me to tell this dude?
Nothing.
Like, you should
don't
take
have to
him to
tell
like.
anything.
Okay.
My advice is to add even more salt the next time if he ever eats your food again. That's my advice. I think you should oversalt everything that you give to him for the rest of time. I think that you should just torture him until the end of his days because he's obnoxious and the sort of person that annoys me. You don't have any comment on that, Tappy?
No, it's just like I'm just like such a. I don't even necessarily want to say like I'm a very agreeable person. I'm just like, but I at the very least am agreeable when it like doesn't matter, right? It's like this guy's like basically letting his life get ruined by like his brother-in-law making some like offhand comment about his lasagna, and this dude's brother-in-law is like inventing some sort of like insane conspiracy theory to like preserve his like salt assumption worldview. Like everybody in this story, like, how do people exist so tightly wound? It just like, I don't know. Just play Valorant, and then the King of Kings will come back down on Judgment Day, and like it'll be good. Like, why do we need to like? What are we doing? What are we doing here? Right? Like, what? You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, so most people don't have anything real to be upset about. I think that's part of why
Then don't be upset.
Yeah, that's not what I mean. I mean, if you're people still experience emotions, but the range of emotions is based on what they have experienced before. Like, if the worst thing that's ever happened to you is something that would mean almost nothing to me, then you're going to feel very strongly about it, and I'm going to think. And you can't really make fun of the worst problems. That's the other thing. This is a comedy advice podcast, and I can't.
No,
make
you
fun
can,
of
but it's
people
just
for
like
worst problems.
I don't think tact is in large supply around these parts, so I don't see why you couldn't.
I mean, sometimes it just depends on what it is, honestly.
Yeah.
I like some of the ones that have very silly titles, though. I'm just gonna scroll through Reddit and pick one that has a silly title to prove my point. Hopefully, I
Is this
don't
what this
accidentally.
podcast is devolving? We're just like effectively like
Yeah.
live streaming you scrolling through Reddit. Is this like an XQC Twitch stream or like a put together podcast? Like, what are we doing here?
Tappy, no one has ever claimed this podcast is well put together. Ever. Not once. I don't think. Well, okay, I might have lied. It's
There's like
possible
a
I've lied.
There's like a 34-year-old mom and 22-year-old like fucking morons like live reaction to r slash.
Like, what am I supposed to do? Am
Okay,
I
get back to the podcast.
am I the asshole for starting my truck?
This is gonna be another one, isn't it?
It's going to be another one. I work a normal day shift, 7 to 4, and each morning, as it has been below freezing, I remotely start my truck from inside the house to let it warm up before I drive to work. Apparently, my neighbor, from the complaining I've heard through the window, works second shift, and the sound of my truck warming up awakens him every morning. He has complained very impolitely about this twice now. I have never met him and do not know him, as I just moved in about 6 months ago. My truck does have an aftermarket exhaust on it, but I wouldn't consider it loud. This is the first time anyone's ever complained about it. So, am I an asshole for starting my truck in the morning and ignoring his complaining?
My concern is the aftermarket exhaust because like I don't know why you're doing that if you're not trying to be obnoxious, right? Like I know people
They're doing it
that
to be obnoxious. There's a guy down my street. It's got like no muffler or something. I don't know. His car is like absurdly loud. Like a freaking bomb just went off in my neighborhood loud. And he just
I don't
messes with
understand
it.
like yeah. I don't understand like the car stuff. Like I know like people that will like at stoplights, they'll put their car in like neutral and just like slam the throttle. They call it like redlining because the RPM like
Mm-hmm.
dial will just like hit the red line, which is like the
Mm-hmm.
top like 15 or 20%, and then it has like safety measures in place to like automatically like cut it, and then it just like but you keep your foot on the gas till it like just bounces up and down on the bottom of the red line, and they think that's like hilarious. And I'm like, are you like 11? Like, what is the? I never understood that. I just think it's very bizarre. So I'm not even in the right frame of mind where I could imagine like modifying my car. And it almost a lot of times people I don't really like the whole discourse about like, oh, if you don't have a truck, you're not a real man. And then the other side's like, oh, if you pretend to care about your truck as an indicator of your masculinity, then you're not a real. And it's like just
Oh
basically
yeah,
just
all
like
that
the
is
most
dumb.
ridiculous, like on both sides it's just absurd. But what I will say is that one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life was when Wings of Redemption, the like very pathetic, like obese Southern Call of Duty streamer that like plays Call of Duty all day, even though he absolutely hates it because it's like his only source of income off Twitch, right? He'll like sit there and like he was telling a story about how his sister started dating a new guy, and the very first thing that he asked her to like vet this guy was, what kind of truck does he drive? That was like his
Yeah,
literal
no,
first
that is like
question.
really stupid. I think people just don't understand, and you see this a lot. People want to talk about what masculinity and what femininity mean on our in our circles of Twitter a lot. No one knows what it means. Everyone thinks it's like stupid, superficial stuff. Like, and dudes think that it means they own a truck sometimes, and they've got
No,
truck
no,
nuts
real
or whatever.
masculinity is like when you basically drink neat whiskey and you smoke imported cigars,
Mm-hmm.
and once a month you pay like $60 to get like a box in the mail that has like a novelty hatchet in it, or
Yeah,
like beard oil or
just all
something like that. That is,
commercial
yeah,
products.
that's
It's all just
masculinity.
it's very stupid, and any identity is like that, I guess, to some extent. Um, I think I'm getting a cold. My nose is doing really bad. Um, but okay. Specifically, the people who have the loud vehicles, who want them loud on purpose and things like that, are doing it to be assholes. Absolutely, they just think that it just feels nice to be the asshole.
But like, why? Like, why does it feel nice to like just like
It's like
own a loud vehicle. Like, why is that cool? I
dudes
don't understand it.
dudes that walk around funny because they think it makes them look macho or something. I don't know.
Oh, you
Like,
know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the people that like open carry. I'm like, why are you
yeah,
like a
no,
firearm, not like alcohol? Like, I'm like,
it's
why
the
are you
same
doing
thing.
that?
It's the
Yeah,
same
like
thing. Like, there's no reason to have an AR-15 strapped to your back except that you could do it and you think it makes you look cool. And like, I get it. Like, I might do it if I was like protesting something, you
no,
know.
the only time I could see it is like, yeah, I guess if you're walking around like bear country, sure, I guess just have your exposed like giant like Magnum revolver on your hip, right? But like,
I wouldn't
has
want anyone
anybody?
to know I have a firearm
Yeah,
if I
well,
was actually
exactly.
anticipating a dangerous situation because they're more likely to shoot you if they know you have a gun. For one
I
thing,
mean,
because you're a
they like
threat
a
and they
lot of
could take it.
people. Yeah, a lot of people like you can go back and forth on that all day, and I try not to get like dragged down into the weeds of like, well, here's what my study says, and like, oh, here's what like that's kind of a dead end. My problem is like has it's just like so unnecessary. Like realistically speaking, you're going to be totally fine if you conceal it, and like nobody in human history has ever looked at like some guy like open carrying his like I don't know, just like whatever obnoxious gun it is, probably like a 1911, and been like, wow, that is a cool guy, right? Like that has never happened, like ever. It just never happened. You just like you're just totally debasing yourself, and that was one thing that like took me a long time to like figure out is that just because like I think the area I was raised in and like the people I was kind of like raised by and around, they kind of have this idea of like, oh, fashion is like a woman thing, and like, oh, if you want to like open carry because you think it's like functional, but like there is something to be said for like how you present yourself, right? So like it's when you start like caring about like how you look, it doesn't necessarily mean that you went to like college and you got like propagandized and like radicalized into being like like a bisexual or something. It's like how you present yourself and how you want the world to perceive you is important, right? You like when
Yeah.
I go to the grocery store, and I see people like the other day I was in the grocery store and I had like literally like Air Force Ones and like Levi jeans and like a white Uniqlo t-shirt on or something. Just like the most and I was like the best dressed person in the entire grocery store.
Yeah.
And I'm like this is like a very like kind of damning indictment of our culture where
Yeah, I
people
don't
just like don't care, right?
Yeah, I don't get it at all. Even if I go to Walmart, I put like the tiniest sliver of eyeliner on. You know what I mean? Like I'm at least
Yeah.
wearing like a decent shirt. I don't think I've ever gone to Walmart wearing sweatpants in my life. Ever.
And one thing that I really don't get is like a lot of times it's like almost an act of pride where people will be like, "Oh, well, I'm doing this because like I'm not like gonna get socially programmed and like I don't." It's like, oh, society tells you you need to like wear Givenchy or something. And it's like, yeah, like I get it, but at
That
the same
mindset
time,
is also
like
social programming though.
you're yeah, but your like rejection of like post modernity doesn't need to come at something that at your own expense. Like you're not like revolting against the
Yeah.
modern world. You're literally just clowning yourself, right? Like if you want to like educate yourself and like become like sustainable in terms of like off-grid sorts of stuff and like figure like I don't know, put like solar panels on top of your house so the government can't shut your power off. I guess that's like admirable or like really figure out like the philosophy of why the things that are happening to us are happening. That's I appreciate that. But if your like rejection of like the modern world is like not washing your like graphic t-shirt before you wear it to Walgreens. Like that's not like you're just hurting yourself. And it's
Yeah.
like I don't put on like my rag and bone sweatshirt because I'm like some deeply insecure person that needs you to know that I have $150. Like and not even that I have $150, that I had $150, right? Like you're not
Yeah.
gonna think of me any different. It doesn't even matter, right? But like I'm just doing it because like there's something to be said for it's almost like the like treat yourself like you're somebody like you're the people you take care of, right? Like if I was like babysitting like a kid or I had my own kid, I would like make sure that they're like taken care of. And like how people are willing to treat themselves I think is like very unfortunate. But anyway.
You should dress slightly better than average, basically. Like that's you don't want to stand out because you are dressed too poor or too rich for the situation you're in, but you do want to look a little bit nice, right? And that's kind of how I have always thought about it. Just like look
Yeah.
slightly nicer than everybody else is probably gonna look, and you're fine. But no, no. Right now, the style for women, especially, I don't know much about men's fashion, honestly, so I can't say if it's exactly the same. But what women are wearing right now, what they feel is stylish, is the trashiest crap you've ever seen, like thin polyester cloth with like holes in it in random places, and
Yeah.
like
One thing
the
that
trashiest sweatpants and like sweat crop top. Somehow it's like a hoodie, but it's a crop top, so they're big old
those are
fat
I kind of like
belly
those
that's
though.
not
Yeah, I like
toned at
those.
all or hanging out. But okay, like you like it because it's like revealing skin, maybe, but it doesn't look good. I don't
Well, I
know.
mean, I think it's like it's kind of like a catalyst for a chemical reaction, right? Like if it's not like obviously if you're not like initially attractive, you putting on like the crop
Right, but
top hoodie
most
is like not gonna
people
do anything for you.
that's
But
the problem is that people think like, oh, you know, hot girls wear this. Most girls are not hot girls. You know, like 80% of you look like trash wearing that. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, that's like when you see people like wear some like some when you see some people wearing leggings, I'm like, no, you don't understand
No, you have
like
to
what's
look a
happening here. Those aren't
certain
like those
way.
aren't for you, sweetheart, right?
Who
Like
therefore is the mom who goes to the gym 4 days a week while her kids are at elementary school, apparently.
my girlfriend is
Because
literally pointing at herself right now and saying, like, "Are you talking about me?" And I'm like, "Oh no, you're great. Never mind.
she
No,
could
you
wear
can.
the
Yeah,
exercise pants.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Actually, recently I kind of swallowed my words a little bit on the exercise pants mom problem because it's like I was just I go to soccer practice for my kids' soccer team. And it's like all the moms are just wearing these like exercise pants and like sports bras and stuff and like pretending like they went to work out.
Like the way like when you go to like your soccer games now and you're like your friends' moms are gonna be there, it's gonna. I think it's about to get really weird. Like I think you're gonna see a bunch of like teenage kids that used to like go after people in their class are gonna start being like not like you get what I mean? Does
Yeah,
that
yeah,
make any
yeah. I
sense?
know what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's weird, right? Because it's like it's one
yeah.
thing to like
Because
have
how
a
do you
hot
navigate that?
mom.
Yeah.
It's another
But now
thing.
it's like cemented in their minds that like you like real that it's like in well it's not in reality but in their minds it's like a like realistic expansion of the dating pool, right? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
so. Because they're kind of like they're technically, literally within proximity.
yeah, and they're like brought up on like the idea that like oh this is like Masato from Evangelion, right? This is like Tsunade from Naruto or something like
Yeah. No,
yeah.
yeah, that's weird. Yeah, I wouldn't be tempting your teenage son's friends like that for one thing. But it
Yeah, I
depends on
mean,
what
if
kind
you
of
wear
shirt
not
you're
even like
wearing.
skinny jeans, because those aren't like popular with like men's fashion anymore, but like even if you wear like slim fit jeans, I mean, which I do mostly because I'm like a kind of a thinner guy, right? So like it would just look ridiculous to wear anything other than that. But like, I mean, it's like a lot of these jeans are partially made of like cotton, but like some amount of like polyester and like stretchy sort of materials, right? So I mean, it's you're basically not getting away from it. That's just kind of the way that the world is now. And I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, I've got like very different opinions than the majority of like Twitter on this, but I just think that it's almost like it's almost irrelevant, right? Like, I mean, if you're really getting like distracted by those sorts of things in like public, I don't know if that's like the whore at Whole Foods like fault, right? Like, oh, that whore checkout girl at Whole Foods like arose my passions. Like,
Well,
like,
it's yeah.
yeah, like,
I
who
well,
cares, dude? Like,
on the modesty topic, I honestly feel like, and we're talking about actual serious stuff this episode instead of just making jokes the whole time, which is going to be very annoying for poor Brytard. Um, but I think on the modesty question, like it to some extent, you cannot claim that a person who's dressing like every other woman in society does is asking for it, or something like that, right? Like you cannot
well, what do
say
you mean
I grew
asking for it?
up.
I don't think anybody's saying that.
Well, no. I get. I'm. It's a hyperbolic word to use or phrase to use, I guess. But just like if you grow up in a society where people have been
We do live in a society of
dressing
yeah.
a certain way. I use the term way too much for that meme to exist. Then if everyone in the like, we have been conditioned to dress like this since we were children. Like, I grew up with the low-rise jeans and baby doll tees trend, right? Like, that's what we were wearing when we were teenagers. And you have been used to this since you were a child. You cannot sit here and claim that woman who's dressing like every other woman is like super wrong for this. It takes two to tango, for one thing. Like, it's also 50% your fault if you are feeling lust over this and potentially acting on it or like entertaining the thoughts. But also just like, I don't know, man, if you're just dressing slightly more modest than everyone else around you, you're probably fine.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It's like, it's whatever. I'm gonna get myself. I would, if I speak, I'll be in big trouble. I really prefer not to.
Just do it.
No, I mean, yeah, you're basically right. I mean, it just like, it doesn't matter. I mean, like, I don't really like. I would say I live in an area that would be like especially like in the lion's den, and I don't really see anything I find like particularly objectionable. And when I do, it's like you're almost like you're like, yeah, that makes sense for the environment that I'm in. Like, one time I went to Taco Bell at like 2 a.m. and it was my first and last time ever being in a Taco Bell. I was like, no, I've made it over 20 years without being in one. Like, that's disgusting. But like, everybody else was going, so I was like, okay, I guess I'll go, right? And I go in, and like, it was like literally worse than like a nightclub, because like 50% of the women in there were wearing, like, I mean, you see like these skimpy like kind of black like clubbing dresses, and that's one thing, but they were like literally wearing like what looked like extremely thin, like, imagine like you cut like a strip of like a curtain or like a really thin like scarf and just like wrapped it around as like a tube top. But it's not a tube top because those are made out of like spandex or something, or like linen. It's like literally just like this thin like piece of cloth that's like draped, and it wasn't even like wrapped perfectly around like a straight line. It was like draped like a curtain, just like over it. And I was like, this is like, what are you guys wearing? Like, this is insanity, right? Like, but I mean,
it's not even close.
whatever. But I was like, oh yeah, I guess I'm the fucking moron in a Taco Bell at 2 a.m. and this is like, it's almost like I've intruded on your territory. It's like the missionary that went to
animals.
It's
and you
yeah,
went
it's
there
like the
and
missionary.
You're like, why is the gorilla scratching his butt at the zoo?
Yeah.
It's like, Tappy, you're the weirdo here. You're the one not scratching your butt. You're in the gorilla enclosure.
Yeah. You're in the canteen at 2 a.m. Exactly. It's like the guy that went to that island and like all the people like threw their spears at him and killed him. It's like, well, what did you think? Like, that's your fault, dude. Like, yeah, I guess my bad. So, but I mean, and then I learned, and I haven't. Guess how many Taco Bells I've been in since? Like, 0. So, like, I don't know if I was like walking around like Whole Foods and I saw like a bunch of like 60-year-olds with like, I don't know, crop tops that were like sheer. Maybe I could be like, oh, the West has fallen or something, right? But like, I mean, it's fine. Like, we're all good. It's gonna be okay, guys. I promise.
I mean, it's fallen, but
yeah, for different reasons.
It's like, whose fault is it? Is it that lady's?
Well,
Probably
I don't
not.
know if I don't know if we're allowed to say whose fault it is.
Well, we're not gonna say whose fault it is.
I think everybody knows whose fault it is. It is Democrats' fault.
Those demon rats.
It's the Democrat Party's fault that the world is the way that it is right now. That's who it's fault.
Absolutely.
It's Jimmy Carter's fault.
It probably is Jimmy Carter's fault. Honestly, I would blame Jimmy Carter for everything. Like, if we needed just a scapegoat, or like one of those sin chickens, you know?
Yeah.
We could just Jimmy Carter. Wait, did he die?
I think so. I think he either died or he was moved to like hospice. I don't, but yeah, I know he's, I don't really keep up with the Jimmy Carter lore, but.
No, okay. About the truck thing though. We got way off topic.
Oh yeah, I forgot we were talking about trucks. Yeah.
So the no muffler thing, the loud car thing, I think it really is just to be an asshole. I remember you were talking about people at red lights, just like red lighting or whatever you said it was called. My dad used to just sit there and put both feet on. He would just peel out after. Like, he would just put both feet on both pedals and just kind of like roll the windows down and try to see if the person next to him would race it. Like, he was the guy with the loud car.
Okay, I've
Like
got.
he's just being
Now that
an
we're back on
asshole. He
topic,
wants people to look at him. He wants like people to think he's cool and macho and masculine.
one question I do have is that like I guess in quasi defense of this of the truck people is when people are like, oh, like liking trucks isn't a personality, which I mean I agree with and is effectively what we're saying here, or like liking Marvel movies isn't a personality, or like people like they basically say that about everything. They'll be like, oh, like your whole life is just like debating theology. That's not a personality. Like being interested in philosophy isn't a person. If people's, but my what I'm getting at is like what is like a personality? Because isn't your personality like to some degree like the sum total of your interests and like the way you're constituted as a person? So if
I
everything
think the way
isn't a
you
personality,
talk.
then like what is a personality? Like, do you get what I mean though?
It's a piece of the whole, I guess. I think that usually people say that to just mean like literally all you ever have spoken about to me is Gregorian chant. Like, have you really just, you have no interest in any other music? Oh, you think all other music is sinful? Like, I think that's when people say that.
Yes. I mean, I listened to "Come Home, the Kids Miss You" by Jack Harlow probably like over 100 times last year. So
I've never heard it. But no, on the trucks, they have use. You know, you want someone in the family to have a truck, like in the close by family. Like we can borrow a truck if we need it. My husband doesn't have one. He would
why?
like to
Like,
have
but
one so that we don't have to
why?
borrow one anymore. Why? In case anytime I need to, like, I have to redo my whole front yard. The HOA is mad at me about my front yard. I have to go get a bunch of bags of mulch. I have to get shrubbery to plant, and not like seeds. Like, I need to fix it. I need to put the shrubs there. Like, they need to be grown shrubs. I don't
Have you
even
ever
know how
heard
this is
of
supposed to fucking work out, but I need to borrow a truck to even be able to do that, and I'm running out of time. Like, that kind of situation is why you need a truck. But if your brother has a truck, then you could just borrow his. Sorry, what?
do you
Sorry.
ever hear like Sam Hyde's like story about like he calls them like logistic stories about like how the average person just only ever tells logistic stories. Do you ever hear this rant?
Oh, dude, I do that a lot.
No, but
No,
it's
I
like
have not.
Sam Hyde was
No.
saying like most people their stories are basically, and especially like people like at work, it's just like, oh, how was your weekend? Oh, well, I went here and then I did this and then I did this and then this happened and then I did that and then I drove to the hardware store, but I had to go on I-90 and you know how the traffic is on I-90. I shouldn't have even went on a Wednesday,
Oh,
but I
that's just
forgot that it was after
men.
2 p.m. No, and I forgot if it was after 2 p.m. And then I finally get to the hardware store and you know the crazy thing, they didn't even have the parts. So, oh, they didn't even have the
Oh
oh,
my
and everybody goes, oh, like
gosh.
that's basically like that story. It's like, oh, I had to contact the HOA and they don't like me and I
Well,
need
I
a truck
explained
and I've
the
got to it's like
situation. No,
you operate on like such a like I don't know, just it's very unfortunate.
it's very unfortunate that I'm worried about logistics. My whole life is logistics, and it's a fair assessment. But it's like, what am I supposed to be talking about right now? We're talking
I don't know,
about why
like
you
I
need a
talk about
truck.
like why are we here?
I'm
Like what
literally
happens after
talking
what
about
happens
why
after
you
you
need a
die?
truck.
No, talk about like what happens after you die or like how
This
like
is this is a
moral systems
comedy
or something.
podcast.
Okay, then be funny. Like, to talk about anything other than like borrowing your
You have made it
brother-in-law's
impossible to be
truck.
funny. What I do is bounce off of people. You're not helping me. You're giving me nothing to bounce off of, Tabby. So now I'm just discussing issues and talking
You're
about
just like
trucks.
literally people are like tuning into the podcast and like listening to Abby talk about like her ongoing saga of like disagreements with the homeowners associations. Like,
You don't understand podcasts. That's the problem here. The people are in a parasocial relationship with me, whether they know it or not. Okay, that's all they want to hear about.
okay.
This is a terrible episode. I'm sorry,
You want to
Tabby.
like relay your latest like trip to the? You know what this reminds me of? Actually, perfect example. This is like, have you ever heard the YouTuber Northern Lion? It's just
No.
like run of the mill sort of gaming YouTuber, but he used to have all these like crazy anecdotes because he was going on all these trips where he'd get like flown out to play like this game, and then when you're like, oh, in Boston for a weekend, like crazy stuff would happen, and like, oh, he went over and taught English in Korea for a while, and like that's gonna come with like a whole host of stories like, oh, funny anecdotes about how like this person didn't understand me, all this like crazy stuff, and he's a hilarious guy. But then he ended up getting married and having a kid, and now like every single story is basically just like, oh, my kid got sick from a different kid at daycare, or like the like I had to go to the grocery store because like all he does is like go to the grocery store or like take care of his kid, and his kid gets sick a lot and stuff like that. And like that's basically you. It's like the spiritual death of the individual, right? Like you have basically like achieved like I guess like Buddhist like theosis, where you no longer have like any sort of personality. You're now a drop in the bucket of like the void, where all of your anecdotes are about like shrubberies and the homeowners association. Like you're no longer like a person.
That is so depressing.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, we're out of time for today. But you can find us on Twitter at OctoAbbey and at Punished Tap. But he's got like a bunch of weird numbers and letters and things in his name, so you can't really find it very well. But it's fine because he's locked anyway. He doesn't want to talk to you. We appreciate you tuning in for today to this episode where Taffy just destroys me and my entire personality or lack thereof. You can join the Patreon to give me money if you would like to at patreon.com/here to help podcast. It's as little as $1 a month. There's not going to be a bonus episode this week because Bryden has abandoned me. Tappy, do you have any
Well,
plugs?
yeah, I would like to plug Instagram.com /JESSU period underscore. Uh, Obviously, I don't directly benefit from that, but I'm just trying to show my support for a good cause there. And I would also just like to point out that, like, in the midst of a kind of personal crisis, realizing that her existence is a lie and she's effectively Neo pre-red pill, she takes a minute in that emotional turmoil to ask you to give her money. So that I just think that's very it's been a very illuminating conversation. I'm sorry I detracted from the comedic nature of this podcast, but I hope that you guys got some insight into the inner workings of Abby's mind, because I think there's a lot to unpack there. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a great week, secure in the knowledge that we are with you. We're the only ones you could trust are here to help, but who? Who's going to help the helpers? Who's going to help me?